As we continue with our coverage on that fatal accident involving school children in Johannesburg yesterday, we look back at a similar accident that happened in Pongola, north of KwaZulu-Natal 2 years ago. You may remember this. On the 16th of September 2022, 18 children and 2 adults were killed when a truck crashed into the bakkie they were traveling in to school. Newzroom Afrika's Karinda Jagmohan joins me now from Durban for a recap. Karinda, a painful reminder this, and perhaps, hopefully something that sticks in our mind on the importance of needing to keep our children safe on our roads.
An absolute painful reminder. The scars still remain of what happened in Pongola 2 years ago. 18 children were killed when a truck illegally overtook on a barriered lane and crashed head-on into a bakkie that was overloaded, carrying 18 children and 2 adults. All 20 people in that vehicle died at the scene. The truck driver fled essentially on that day. He was arrested a day after and has since been appearing in court. It was this year, nearly in May, that he was found guilty of 20 counts of murder, reckless and negligent driving, as well as failing to perform necessary duties after an accident. He will spend the next 20 years of his life at least behind bars. A young man that was driving that truck, and essentially some CCTV footage also shows how he overtook the barrier lane on the N2. And before I just actually tell you about some of the challenges in that area, very similar to what my colleague Zola was speaking about before in terms of scholar transport, take a listen to the now former Transport Minister Vicky Lambalula just recapping how that accident unfolded back in 2022.
The report found that the driver of the articulated truck overtook multiple vehicles. Where this action was prohibited by no overtaking lanes in a dangerous and unlawful manner. This driver recklessly overtook vehicles and drove on the oncoming lane for approximately 1.2 kilometers. These vehicles had to swerve out of the way of the approaching truck. The driver never made any attempt to return to his correct lane, but continued driving against oncoming traffic, putting lives of other motorists at risk. The report concludes that driver error is the major contributing factor to the root cause of the road crash. This is as a result of the driver of the articulated truck overtaking multiple vehicles, where this action was prohibited by no overtaking lines, in a dangerous and unlawful manner, placing the lives of other occupants of the oncoming vehicles at risk. The driver's actions of overtaking vehicles for approximately 1.2 kilometers before the area of impact was extremely reckless.
So while this was negligent and reckless driving, more issues came to the fore during that visit by the Transport Minister. The local community speaking about the dangers with the N2 highway running straight through the Pongola community, people having to cross over the N2 highway, and essentially at some points that highway just one lane. Also the increasing number of trucks going through that region. They question why railway lines are not operating to transport the goods that trucks are transporting through that northern region, and essentially the Richards Bay Harbour down to the Durban Harbour and even back to you in Gauteng. That is one issue that was raised, the dangers around the N2, the increasing number of trucks, but also the community raised issues as well as equal education about scholar transport. It's been a difficult time for scholar transport in KwaZulu-Natal because only in 2021 was policy actually emerged with regard to the regulation of scholar transport, meaning that there were a number, almost 1,000 schools waiting for scholar transport from the basic education department at that time. And while that has been resolved in some cases, in many areas, children are still either walking to school in very rural areas in inland KwaZulu-Natal and northern KwaZulu-Natal, where they don't have these services often, and more so in some cases, parents are resorting to community-based transport. And what my colleague Zola just brought up now is that there's a concern with regards to the regulation of this private scholar transport, And at that time, 18 children in one small bakkie, all at the back, squashed together. And sadly, at that time, that truck coming head on to them. At that scene, we saw some of their books, their bags, even pencils lying on the ground amidst the remains, of course, of that accident, essentially. And there was conversation about increasing security in all of these measures. And there has been some resolve, more traffic awareness on the Pongola highway, but still in many cases, you still see overloaded or overcrowded vehicles. Even I remember just a few days after that accident happened, we were reporting there and we saw another bakkie with a number of children on the back of that bakkie going to school. So of course, countrywide, this is a big issue, and perhaps while we are seeing the tragedy of what has happened right now in Johannesburg, it is of course again another critical conversation about immediate intervention.